The forgotten threat. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Conclave hummed with the voices of 100 species, their varied anatomies creating a living mosaic against the backdrop of the massive observation dome. Beyond the transparent ceiling, the spiral arms of the Milky Way stretched across the void, countless stars bearing witness to the proceedings below. High Counselor Zerathi of the Vesperi Dominion, his 6 iridescent wings folded neatly behind his chitinous exoskeleton, tapped a crystalline gavel against the podium. The chamber fell into silence. "We gather to address troubling developments in the restricted zone," he announced, his translator converting the melodic clicks and whistles of his native speech into the standardized galactic common. Outpost Sigma 9 has gone silent, the third such incident this cycle. A ripple of concern moved through the assembly. The restricted zone, a vast region of space near the Orion Arm, had been marked as prohibited in navigational charts for over 15 generations. Most younger species accepted the official explanation. Gravitational anomalies and deadly radiation made the region naturally impassable. Ambassador Kala of the Luminar stepped forward, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with blue light. The Luminar were among the oldest spacefaring races, their civilization stretching back nearly 50 millennia. "The truth has been kept from most of you," she said, her voice resonating with the weight of ages. "The restricted zone is not merely dangerous, it is a quarantine." Murmurs erupted across the chamber. "A quarantine?" asked Delegation Chief Morven of the Tellurians, his rock-like features betraying no emotion despite his surprise. "What manner of contagion would necessitate cordoning off an entire sector?" Kala's skin shifted to a deeper blue. "Not a contagion, Chief Morven. A species." The chamber erupted into chaos. Species quarantined. Such a concept violated the most fundamental principles of galactic cooperation. Even the most dangerous predator races had been integrated into the conclave over time. High Counselor Zerathi restored order with 3 sharp taps of his gavel. "Ambassador Kala speaks of ancient history, known only to the founding races of the conclave. The quarantined species called themselves humans." The word triggered different reactions across the chamber. Most delegates appeared confused, having never heard the term. A few of the older races showed signs of recognition. The Arachne representative chittered nervously, 8 legs twitching in agitation. "Humans are merely legends," scoffed Science Director Lox of the Centaurian Republic, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "Boogeyman stories told to frighten younglings, a violent species so unpredictable they needed to be contained. If such beings existed, surely concrete evidence would remain." Ambassador Kala gestured to the central holographic projector. An image appeared, a bipedal being with pinkish-beige skin, relatively hairless except for the top of its head, with forward-facing eyes and flat teeth indicating an omnivorous diet. "This is a human," she said simply. 15 generations ago, they were an emerging spacefaring race, confined to a single star system, but rapidly advancing. Their technology was primitive, but they possessed concerning attributes. What attributes could possibly justify quarantining an entire species? Demanded Ethics Minister Thorne of the Federation of Free Worlds, her membrane crests flaring with indignation. "Adaptability beyond anything we had encountered," replied High Counselor Zerathi. "Psychological unpredictability. And most concerning, an affinity for warfare that bordered on art form." Historical footage began playing in the holographic display. Primitive human conflicts with increasingly devastating weapons, nuclear explosions, cities in ruins, and always the humans rebuilding, advancing, emerging stronger from each catastrophe. "They waged war against their own kind continuously throughout their recorded history," continued Zerathi. "Our predictive model suggested that once they achieved faster-than-light travel, they would spread rapidly, potentially destabilizing established galactic hierarchies. So your solution was imprisonment." Ethics Minister Thorne's voice dripped with disgust. "Not imprisonment," corrected Ambassador Kala. "Isolation. We established a perimeter of spatial distortion generators that prevented their detection of other civilizations and limited their exploration. The quarantine was meant to be temporary, until they matured as a species. Security Chief Drex of the Cronus Imperium, a massive reptilian with scurred scales, huffed impatiently. Interesting history lesson, but what does this have to do with our missing outposts? Science Director Locke manipulated the controls, replacing the historical footage with recent sensor readings. These energy signatures. As for why we've come, continued Chen, we've been observing the galaxy for decades. Your quarantine was never as perfect as you believed. Signals leak. Ships occasionally pass close enough for observation. We've monitored your politics, your alliances, your conflicts. Spying, growled Drex. Intelligence gathering, corrected Chen without heat. A prudent measure for a species that was forcibly isolated. But recent developments have necessitated our emergence. She nodded to the third human, a slight female with features that suggested mixed ancestry. The woman activated the small device, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. This is the reason for our arrival, Chen explained, as the hologram displayed a strange geometric structure floating in deep space. We've detected these constructs at 17 different locations along the galactic rim, always in remote regions far from established trade routes. Science Director Locke leaned forward, his three eyes focusing independently on different aspects of the structure. I've never seen anything like it. What is it? We call them harbinger relays, said Chen. They appear to be communication devices, broadcasting signals into the void between galaxies. We believe they're calling something here. What evidence do you have of this? Demanded Locke skeptically. The female human, communications specialist Amara Okafor, according to her translator badge, adjusted the display. The signals have been increasing in frequency and power. More concerning, something has been answering. The hologram shifted to show a deep space sensor reading, a massive object moving at incredible speed toward the Milky Way. We detected this 8 months ago, said Okafor, her voice steady despite the ominous implications. Current trajectory puts it arriving within 2 years. Its mass suggests an object approximately 1/8 the size of Earth's moon, but artificially constructed. The chamber erupted into chaotic discussion, dozens of species talking simultaneously as the implications sank in. High Counselor Zarethi tapped his gavel repeatedly, finally restoring order. Assuming this threat is real, why come to us? Why not remain safely isolated in your restricted zone? Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Because unlike some, we don't abandon others to their fate. Whatever's coming isn't just a threat to you. It's a threat to all intelligent life in this galaxy, including humanity. We're offering an alliance. An alliance, repeated Security Chief Drex, his scales shifting color with suspicion. With a species we quarantined because of their warlike nature. Precisely because of our warlike nature, Chen replied, meeting his gaze steadily. You isolated us because you feared what we might become. Now, you need exactly what we've become. The third human stepped forward, her voice soft but carrying. You call yourselves a conclave of civilized worlds. You've achieved remarkable things. Art, science, philosophy. But there's one area where humanity has millennia of specialized experience. And what might that be? Asked Ambassador Kala, though her ancient eyes suggested she already knew the answer. Admiral Chen's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. War, Ambassador. When the darkness comes, you'll need monsters standing beside you, and humanity has learned to embrace the monster within. The Reckoning. Grand Admiral Helena Chen stood motionless before the massive observation window of the UES Nemesis, Earth's flagship. Beyond the reinforced transparasteel, the combined fleet of the Human Conclave Alliance stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of vessels representing over 60 species, arranged in perfect formation despite having trained together for less than 18 months. They're still not ready, said Fleet Commander Takahashi, his weathered face grim as he studied tactical projections. Chen didn't turn. They've never needed to be ready before. Peace has made them soft. And us? Asked Takahashi. What has isolation made us? Now she did turn, fixing him with a steady gaze. Prepared. The bridge doors hissed open as Science Director Marcus Webb entered, accompanied by the Luminar Ambassador Kella. Despite being allies for over a year, most conclave species still showed subtle signs of discomfort in human presence. Kella was one of the few exceptions, her bioluminescent patterns suggesting curiosity rather than fear. The Harbinger relays have gone silent, Webb announced without preamble. All 17 simultaneously. Chen's expression remained impassive, but her eyes hardened. It's beginning, then. The Conclave Council requests your presence at the emergency session, said Kella, her light patterns shifting to formal diplomatic configurations. High Counselor Zerathi feels your perspective would be valuable. The subtle hesitation didn't escape Chen's notice. Even after all this time, the Conclave leadership remained uncomfortable with humanity's directness, their willingness to state unpleasant truths without diplomatic cushioning. Commander Takahashi, you have the bridge, Chen ordered. Maintain alert status and continue drilling the fleet segments. I want response times cut by another 15%. Ambitious, commented Kala as they walked toward the shuttle bay. Necessary, Chen corrected. The conclave vessels still lag significantly behind human response metrics, perhaps because we haven't spent 15 generations preparing for war in isolation, the ambassador suggested, her bioluminescence expressing something like wry humor. Chen's stride didn't falter. No, you spent them believing war was a primitive concept you'd evolved beyond. Upon arrival at the conclave station, Chen found the council chamber in disarray. Representatives from dozens of species argued vehemently, their translators struggling to keep pace with the overlapping voices. Security Chief Drex, now a reluctant ally, stood beside High Counselor Zerathi, both watching the chaos with evident concern. Admiral Chen greeted Zerathi, his compound eyes swiveling to track her approach. Thank you for coming. Chen nodded curtly. I understand the Harbinger relays have gone silent. Yes, and that's not all, said Drex, bringing up a holographic display. We've lost contact with the Viridian colony. 40,000 settlers, gone silent without any distress call. The Viridian system is over 60 light-years from the nearest Harbinger relay, noted Chen, studying the star chart. 73 light-years, corrected Science Director Locks, joining their group. The Centaurians' usual skepticism toward humans had diminished considerably since Chen's science team had upgraded the Conclave's sensor array, revealing the approaching threat that Lox's own instruments had missed. We've dispatched an investigative team, but they won't arrive for another 3 days. Too slow, said Chen flatly. The Nemesis can be there in under 9 hours. Lox blinked his 3 eyes in sequence, a Centaurian expression of surprise. That's impossible, even with your advanced drives. We've been holding back certain capabilities, Chen interrupted. Strategic considerations. The admission sent a visible ripple of tension through the nearby council members. Despite their alliance, trust remained fragile. You still don't trust us, stated Zerathi, his multifaceted eyes unreadable. Trust is earned, Counselor. We've both taken steps in that direction. But survival comes first. Before further discussion could ensue, the chamber's emergency alert system activated. A harried communications officer rushed in, making directly for the High Counselor. Sir, the officer said, voice tight with controlled panic, we're receiving a transmission. It's broadcasting on all frequencies, in all known languages simultaneously. Source, demanded Drex. Unknown, sir. It appears to be coming from everywhere. The main display activated without command. Static filled the screen momentarily before resolving into an image that caused several council members to recoil instinctively. The being on screen defied easy classification. Its form seemed to shift between states, solid to liquid to gaseous and back again, with a core of swirling darkness that hurt the eyes to focus upon. When it spoke, the voice resonated not just from the speakers, but seemed to vibrate from within the listeners themselves. Sentients of the galaxy, hear our declaration. We are the Void Convergence. Your existence has been monitored through our Harbinger network. Your civilizations have been judged and found wanting. Chen noticed that while most of the Conclave representatives appeared shocked or terrified, Security Chief Drex had immediately begun coordinating with his security teams, preparing defensive measures. Perhaps the reptilian had more in common with humans than either would care to admit. The entity continued. Resistance is unnecessary and will only increase suffering. Submit to dissolution and absorption. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be preserved within the convergence. This is the only path to continuation. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Dissolution and absorption, whispered a delegate from one of the younger species. What does that mean? It means they're going to break us down and use us as raw materials, said Chen bluntly. Biological, technological, cultural, everything that makes us what we are, harvested like a crop. High Counselor Zerethi turned to Chen, his normally impassive demeanor showing cracks of genuine fear. You've suspected something like this all along, haven't you? This is why humanity developed such extensive military capabilities in isolation. Chen's expression remained carefully neutral. We detected the first Harbinger relay 300 years ago. Our analysts predicted several possible scenarios for their purpose. This was among the worst projections. 300 years, exclaimed Blocks. The first relay was only detected by Conclave sensors 50 years ago. As I said, we've been holding back certain capabilities. Before accusations of deception could fly, the station's proximity alarms blared. The tactical display showed multiple unidentified objects emerging from what appeared to be tiers in the fabric of space itself, not conventional FTL emergence points. Multiple contacts, shouted Drex's security officer. Configuration unknown. Weapons hot. Chen tapped her communication implant. Nemesis, this is Chen. Execute Prometheus Protocol. Authentication Alpha 7 Delta Omega. Confirmed, Admiral, came the immediate response. Prometheus Protocol activated. Deploying countermeasures. Throughout the combined fleet, human vessels suddenly changed configuration. Hidden weapon systems came online. Protective armor plates shifted to reveal previously concealed launch bays, and energy signatures doubled or tripled in intensity. The Conclave representatives stared in disbelief as the true nature of humanity's military capability revealed itself. What had appeared to be an impressively advanced fleet suddenly transformed into something far more formidable and terrifying. You've been concealing your actual capabilities from us, said Ambassador Kella, her bioluminescence pulsing with patterns Chen had never seen before. All this time. Yes, admitted Chen without apology. Has you concealed the truth about why you quarantined us? The accusation hung in the air between them as the first wave of Void Convergence vessels engaged the Alliance fleet. Unlike conventional ships, the alien constructs appeared to be partially phased into another dimension, making them difficult to target. Energy weapons passed partially through them, dealing reduced damage. But the human vessels had no such difficulties. Their weapons, technology developed in isolation, on a completely different evolutionary path from Conclave science, struck the convergent ships with devastating effect. What are those weapons? Demanded Science Director Locks, watching in astonishment as human armaments tore through the alien vessels. Dimensional anchor torpedoes, replied Chen. They forced the target into a single-phase state, preventing the matter shifting you're witnessing. That should be impossible, Locks whispered. For your science, perhaps, we took a different path. As the battle raged outside, Chen turned to address the assembled Conclave leadership, her voice calm and measured despite the chaos. When you quarantined humanity, you feared what we might become. You were right to be afraid. Isolation didn't temper our warlike nature, it honed it. Removed from the galactic community, we turned our aggression inward, fighting amongst ourselves until we nearly destroyed our civilization. The tactical displays showed human vessels moving with uncanny coordination, executing maneuvers that Conclave ship captains had dismissed as theoretically impossible during joint training exercises. But we survived. We rebuilt. And then we found the first Harbinger relay. We realized we weren't alone in the universe, and that something was watching. So we prepared. For 3 centuries, we've been preparing for this day. A massive convergence vessel emerged from a spatial tear directly adjacent to the Conclave station. Before the station's defenses could even target it, 3 human destroyers intercepted, sacrificing themselves in a coordinated attack that shattered the alien ship. You feared humanity would destabilize your carefully balanced galactic order, continued Chen, watching the battle with clinical detachment. You never considered that your order might need destabilizing. High Counselor Zerathi stepped forward, his compound eyes fixed on the human admiral. What are you saying? I'm saying that peace made you vulnerable. 15 generations of stability and cooperation created a civilization incapable of facing existential threats. You need humanity not despite our warlike nature, but because of it. As if to punctuate her statement, the human flagship Nemesis executed a maneuver that should have torn it apart, emerging behind the largest convergence vessel and unleashing a barrage that split the alien ship in 2. We are the monsters you created, said Chen, her eyes reflecting the explosions visible through the observation dome. Isolated, paranoid, and constantly preparing for enemies we couldn't see. And now, we're the only hope this galaxy has. The battle outside reached its climax as the remaining convergence vessels, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, began retreating through their spatial tiers. The combined fleet, led by human tacticians, prevented most from escaping. In the sudden quiet that followed, High Counselor Zerathi turned to the assembled representatives. The quarantine of humanity was perhaps the greatest mistake in Conclave history, he said solemnly. And also, it seems, our salvation. Admiral Chen's communicator chimed. Admiral, Prometheus protocol successful. Enemy forces retreating. 92% neutralization achieved. Acknowledged, Nemesis. Maintain alert status. This was only their first wave. As the Council erupted into discussion of next steps and defense strategies, Ambassador Kayla approached Chen privately. You knew this was coming. You prepared specifically for this enemy. There's more you haven't told us. Chen met the ancient being's gaze steadily. Yes. Will you share it now? Some of it. The rest, when you're ready. Kala's bioluminescence pulsed with something like resignation. We created our own destruction when we isolated your species, didn't we? If humanity had been integrated into the Conclave, you might have developed differently. Perhaps, admitted Chen, or perhaps the Conclave would have. Either way, what's done is done. The question now is whether we can work together to survive what's coming. And what is coming, Admiral? Truly. Chen looked out at the stars, her expression grave. The end of everything as we know it, unless we become something new together, something that combines your civilization with our savagery. As if in answer, a proximity alert sounded. The tactical display showed hundreds of spatial tiers opening simultaneously across a vast front. The second wave had arrived, and it dwarfed the first. This, said Admiral Chen, straightening her uniform as she prepared to return to her ship, is where humanity's war begins. Your legends were silent for 15 generations. Now you'll see why you feared us. The human legend had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.